Welcome to my lecture on server technology. Here let us discuss servlet request object as well as servlet response object. Of course, in servlet we see two different types of objects. One is from the package javax.servlet, another one is from javax.servlet.http. One is a request for generic servlet, so it is plain servlet request. Another one is a request for HTTP servlet. That's why it is HTTP servlet request. We have to know the difference between those two. So there are two different objects. One is for HTTP servlet and another one is for generic servlet. And in request object, there are so many methods. Okay. Generally, we see get methods here. User will request the servlet. From that request, within the servlet, you can get few details. That's nothing but there can be attribute and a name within that request. That attribute name you can get, as well as attribute value you can get by using get attribute name, and get attribute. Similarly, within that request packet, there will be some details like the content length, content type. So those details can also be applied. And then you can get input stream of the request, so that we can read the data. And the important method generally we use, that is get parameter. Get parameter is nothing but when a request comes, within the request there is a possibility of form data. Form data will be along with the request. If the form is submitted along with that request, form data will also be sent. Within the form we have form controls, and for each control there will be a value. For suppose if you take a text box, within the text box there will be a value, and for the text box there will be a name. So parameter name is the form control name, and parameter value is the value what the user gave, otherwise what the user selected from that form control. And then get local address, that is related to IP address. It will get the IP address of that particular request on which it is received. And similarly, if you want to know all the parameter names, get parameter names. If you want to get all the parameters values in the form of an array, get parameter values. If you want to get servlet context object, then call get servlet context. Then the server name, the server port name, port number, and whether it is secure or not. If you want to remove the attribute, you can remove the attribute. You can change the value within the attribute also. So attribute can be created, a value can be added into it. After that, it can be removed. Attribute is like that. Whereas parameter, it is not like that. It is from form. It is from form data. So we have two interfaces. One is HTTP servlet request, and another one is servlet request. Both are interfaces. Servlet request is from javax.servlet package. It is for generic servlet, and its features are extended into HTTP servlet request, which is in javax.servlet.http package, and few methods are added into that. That's it. And if you look about HTTP servlet request, the previous one is servlet request. Now this one is HTTP servlet request. So HTTP features will be added here. One is, for suppose, context part. That is nothing but URI request URI. Cookies, you can get the cookies. Cookie is a text file which is maintained within the client system by the server related to one particular website. Okay, if the user visits one website, that website can store a text file within the user's or client's system. Okay, and whenever a request comes from that user to the website, cookie will be sent. So from that request, HTTP request, HTTP servlet request, we can get cookies. If there is any cookie, that cookie object will be returned over here. Get query string is nothing but within the URL of the request, there will be query string. That's nothing but after within the URL, if you observe carefully, there will be a question mark. After the question mark, form control name is equals to its value, and form control name is equals to and its value. Like that, query string will, I mean, along with the URL, query string will be placed. Generally, form data will be placed within the query string. Not only that, so many other things can also be placed. So if you want to access, if you want to get the data from URL, you have to use get query string. Similarly, session, you can get the session also. Session is a collection of requests and responses in between one client and the server is one session. Up to that too in one particular time period. Okay, if I access Gmail now from 9 to 10, 9 p.m. to 10 p.m., then it is one session. Okay, if you access at the same time, that is another session. If some X uses same time, that is one more session. Okay, you open Gmail and you will log out the Gmail, that is one session. Tomorrow again you will open Gmail and access Gmail and log out Gmail, that is one more session. Okay, session refers all the pages within the website, but it is related to one user at one particular time period, and it deals with all the things with that particular user. Okay, we will discuss that point in the coming lectures. And get method, we can get the submission method like get, post. So many are there. Important one are get and post. Not only get and post, there is one more thing, put. Okay, that method will be obtained over here. Okay, then get path info, get servlet path. Like some information you can get over here. You can obtain over here. Okay, so if you look at one example, here is one small form. There is one web page, for suppose index.html. Now within that, of course, we have to write HTML, head, title, body, all those things. But instead of writing the entire program, we wrote the core part. That nothing but there is a form. The method is post, and the action is check. Means what? It will this form will be submitted to one page with the name check. Okay, within that form there is one text box, name user, and one button. It is a submit button. When the user clicks on the submit button, then that form data will be placed inside the body of the HTTP page, and it will be sent to check page. Okay, and web.xml is deployment descriptor. It will tell about how the servlet when a request comes. What if, for suppose, when a request with domain name / check comes, then it has to execute one servlet with name check. Okay, now whenever a servlet has to be executed with name check, then a class will be executed. That class name is my servlet. Like that, that information will be placed inside web.xml in the form. By using XML, we will write this file, and XML tags will be used, and all these are predefined. Okay, you cannot use your own tag. You have to use the tag which they have defined. There is a specific meaning for each tag. Okay, they created few tags in XML. Okay, then servlet program. So every time whenever you write a servlet program, you're supposed to write import statements like import java.io, import javax.servlet, as well as javax.servlet.http. And then this is a HTTP servlet. That's why we are creating public class my servlet. It is created by extending HTTP servlet. You can write extends the generic servlet, otherwise implements servlet. Okay, this is the third way. You can write extends HTTP servlet. When you are writing HTTP servlet, you have to override either do get or do post. See, in our form the method is post. That's why here what we are doing is we are writing do post. post. And request is HTTP servlet request, not servlet request. It is HTTP servlet request, and the response is HTTP servlet response, and it throws servlet exception as well as IO exception. And similar to all the servlet programs, we have to write respond.set the content type as text by HTML, and we are getting the writer of response so that we can write something into the response. Okay, now here what we are doing is we are getting the parameter. So get parameter method is called from the request object. And what is the parameter name? User. What is user? User is the name. User is the name for text box. User is the name for text box. Okay. So here parameters means we are getting the values from the form. Okay, get parameter, what the user gives in the form, that value will be stored inside one variable with name user. And in the response, out means it is the writer of the response, means what we can write something within it. So within the response we are writing by using out.println, and what is that? We are writing on HTML tag. There's nothing but welcome, this is static, and user is nothing but a variable value, and that variable value depends upon what the user gives within the form. So if you look at the output, suppose the user is giving name Abhijit and click on submit, then it will show welcome Abhijit. And if you see the URL, it is localhost. That's nothing but server and client both are same, because we are developing. So when we are developing, we will use server and client both same. 8080 is a port number for the server, and first is the name of the web application, and check is the name of the servlet. Okay, here a servlet is executed. See, that web server will take this URL and it will find out the corresponding servlet, and that particular servlet will be executed like that it will be. So that will be done with the help of web.xml. That mapping and all will be done by using the information which is present in web.xml. And then servlet response. In servlet response, okay, again there are methods. One method is what we have seen in the previous program, that's nothing but getWriter. So getWriter is nothing but we can get the output stream. We can get output stream of the response, so that we can put something in the response. So if you get the writer object, then using that writer object, you can write something into it. Okay. So similarly, we can set the buffer size of the response. We can set the content length. We can set the content type. We can set the buffer size. Okay, and we can set the locale. All those things, and we can find out whether it is committed or not. Okay. So those are we will not use all those things, but mainly we will use this one, getWriter. Okay, most of the time. So every time we will use getWriter. And if you look at HTTP servlet response, it is created by extending the servlet response. Both are interfaces, and their objects will be created, and those will be passed to our servlet by the web container. That is nothing but web server. And when you look at some of the important methods of HTTP servlet response, okay, add cookie. That's nothing but server will create a cookie in the client system. How a server will be creating cookie in the client system? By using this add cookie method. Okay, so we have to create a cookie by creating object for cookie class, and that cookie object we are supposed to pass here. Okay, within that cookie, what we will do, we will place some attributes. Attributes in the sense a name and value. Name value pair will be placed inside each cookie. Okay, and in the form of object we will place in this add cookie. So within the response, a cookie will be placed. After this response, when it reaches when this response reaches the client, over there a text file will be created because of this add cookie. Within the text file, that attribute name and value will be placed. Whenever any request comes from the same user after some time to this website, then that cookie will be sent. So by using request, we can read that cookie what we have created earlier, and we can use it. That's what the concept here. Okay, and send redirect. We can redirect the request. Otherwise, we can redirect here. It is response. We can redirect the response. Okay, sends redirect response to client using specified. So one URL you can use, and to that URL you can redirect the user. You can redirect the user. Okay. So for suppose you will be executing the servlet. During the servlet, you understood that the user is not authenticated. So what we will do, we will redirect the response to some other page. Over there I will show, sorry, you are not authenticated, please authenticate yourself properly, like that we can do. Okay, so there's nothing but we can send the response to some other page. Okay, we can redirect the response to the client using some other page. Okay, some other page will be displayed to the user. Okay, you can get the status, and you can get the headers also. You can set the header as well as get the header. Again, a header also same concept. A name and value pair will be there. Okay, you can store that one in response, and afterwards you can get it. Okay, during these redirects and all, they may use this set header as well as get header. Okay, then you can set the status of the response, and if possible, you can send an error also. While executing, we understood that we are unable to execute the servlet, so that we can send an error, 404 error, or some code will be there. For every error, there will be one number. That if you show that number and along with that one message, that is nothing but an error. Okay, to the user, like that. Okay, so those are all methods related to response. And then the other concept is web.xml. This one we discussed already. Okay, so web.xml is one XML file. Web.xml is called deployment descriptor. Web.xml will give the details about the web pages, otherwise the servlets, or about the pages within our website to the web server. Web server will identify, okay, when this particular request comes, which page to execute, which server to execute. That and all, web server will identify. For suppose whenever a request comes, web server will come to web.xml and it will find which page to which servlet to execute, and then that particular servlet will be executed. So here for servlet, related to servlet, there will be servlet tag as well as servlet mapping. In servlet mapping, there will be URL pattern. So a request comes by using this URL pattern. Whenever request comes by using this URL pattern, then you have to execute one servlet with this name, for suppose internal name 1. Okay, now we will look for a servlet with name internal name 1. So here this is internal name 2, so this will not be. This is internal name 1, so this should be executed. So see, we got the name, but actually we are supposed to execute one class file. So what is the name of the class file? That is nothing but foo.servlet1. So that particular class file will be executed. Okay, that is the use of web.xml, that is deployment descriptor. Of course, within the deployment descriptor, there will be so many tags. These are the basic tags which are required for the execution of the servlet. If you are not writing these tags, then a servlet cannot be executed. Then a request dispatcher. In servlets, we have one more concept called request dispatcher. Okay, dispatcher, just like a postman, it will do. Postman, he will collect all the letters and he will dispatch us. Okay. Similarly, what it will do, it will take the request and it will dispatch. See, like, let us look at this sentence. It is an interface, implementation of which defines an object which can dispatch request to any source. It will take the request and it gives that request to any of the page, any of the program in the website. It can be given to, that request can be transferred to HTML, that request can be transferred to an image or JSP or servlet. Okay. And there are so many methods in request dispatcher, but important methods are two. One is forward, another one is include. Forward the request. Forward. So it will see a request has come to one servlet. We are executing that servlet and we understood this is not the servlet to execute. There is one more servlet which is to be executed. So we can forward the request. So when you are forwarding the request, you have to pass that request object as well as response object from this servlet to that particular servlet. That's why we will be calling forward, okay, and we will be passing the request object as well as response object, okay. And of course, to which page we have to forward that? So that will be obtained by using get request dispatcher from the request, okay. So within the request object, there is get request dispatcher method, okay. So this request dispatcher method will take one program from the website, for suppose in this hello.xml, okay. So now we will be forwarding by using request dispatcher, that request and response, okay. And then we have one more thing called include. That's nothing but includes the content of a resource in the response. That is nothing but we are sending response to the client, okay. In that response, generally what we do in a servlet, a HTML program will be sent, okay. Along with that response, we can add response of some other file also, okay. This file and that file, both files response will be sent as a single response. That is what included here, okay. Another page content can be used as a response along with the present response, okay. So here request is the object, request is the object, okay. And which object it is? Servlet request object. It has one method, get request dispatcher. Here we are giving the resource name, okay, and forward and request and response to that particular resource. So we are forwarding the present request to that particular resource. That's nothing but in this example, it is hello.html. Otherwise, we can make use of include. So both will be called similarly, okay. Get request dispatcher, and instead of forward, we are calling include. So that particular page response will be included along with the present response, okay. So first.html, again rs.include. So include response of first.html page in current servlet response, in current servlet response. So along with current servlet response, that page response can also be included, okay. So one small example. So here the files are one HTML file, two Java files, and one XML file. What is XML file? Deployment descriptor. It is required for every website, okay. Within that website there are 10 servlets, then 10 servlet tags are to be written within this web.xml, okay. And here we are using val.java to find out whether the user is a valid user or not, and welcome.java is a welcome page, and index.html is a HTML program. Within the HTML program, it is like this. There are two text boxes. One is a normal text, another one is password, and one text box name is user and another text box name is pass, and there is one submit button, okay. When the user gives the username and password, after that when they click on submit, then that request will be sent to validate program, okay. We should know what is the validate program. Of course, it is a servlet, okay. We know that point, import and exchange HTTP servlet, and then do post. Why do post? Because within the form we are using the method as post, okay. So now so do post, HTTP request, HTTP servlet response as arguments for that, and then same stuff, right? So set the content type and get the writer, all those things. But here what we are doing is we are getting the parameter, and the parameter name is user. What is that user? Name of the form tag. Pass name of the form control. Pass also name of the form control, and those values will be obtained from the request, and those will be placed inside two different variables, string variables within this Java program, name and password. And we are finding out if the password is equals to study tonight, then we are executing one code, otherwise we are executing another code, okay. So if it is study tonight, then we are forwarding the request to one page with name welcome, okay. If it is not study tonight, that password, simply one small logic, that's it. In real time we will not write like that for password, okay. So else means we are generating one font tag in HTML and one bold tag in HTML. So bold and red will be there, and it will be giving you have entered incorrect password. That's nothing but highlighted, red colored means what? Something wrong. Red means wrong, stopped. Okay. So and then we will include one page response here. What is that page? Index.html means what? Again the first page will come here. Again the first page. So the user is not authenticated. Then again the first page. Within that first page, again it will show the username and password. If it is correct, for suppose study tonight, then it will welcome the user by forwarding the request to welcome page, welcome Servlet. Okay, in welcome Servlet, nothing is there. Simply we are printing like this, welcome user. Everything is same as it is. Okay, similar. So now web.xml here we are using two servlets. That's why we are writing two servlet tags and two mapping tags for those servlets. And then one important new point here is welcome file is. There's nothing but this file means what? Here welcome file index.html. This index.html will be displayed as the starting web page. So when you open gmail.com, it will open one page. When you open lbrc.ac.in, it will open one page. That is nothing but welcome page. That is a starting page. Now, which page should welcome the user for your website? That can be provided under welcome file list within that welcome file. Okay. So in our example, index.html is the welcome page. So when the user requests the web page, then index.html will be displayed like this. Okay. So where user will give his name and password and click on submit. Actually, password should be studied tonight, but here we have given only 2 characters. Means what? The password is incorrect. So what happens? Okay, it will be showing like this. You have entered incorrect password, and again the same page. In the index.html is displayed. Now, for suppose the user is giving the correct password, study tonight, and clicks on submit, then it will go to some other page. In that page, we are displaying welcome user. That's nothing but how do we use that request dispatcher with the help of include and forward methods. Okay, so along with the include and forward, we have one more thing. That's nothing but send redirect. We can redirect the request. We can redirect the request. Okay. Sorry, we can redirect that response by using response. We can do that. So user has requested one servlet, for suppose my servlet. Okay, but I will send the response to one more page, for suppose study. Okay, so we are not executing the servlet. We will be sending that. We will be redirecting the user. We will be redirecting to the user to some other page. Sometimes we need like this. For that, we will be using send redirect. Okay, so we can redirect the user to some other web page by using send redirect. Afterwards, after that, we discuss a servlet request and response, then web.xml. Afterwards, request dispatcher. And right now we are moving into one important concept. That's nothing but session management. So session management is session. You have to understand what is session. Session is the time period of client interaction with our website. Okay, and it deals with all the requests and responses in between that client and server during that time period. Okay, that is one session during that time period. So good example is Gmail login, session started. Gmail logout, session ended. Okay, Indian Railway Reservation System IRCTC login, session started. Okay, logout, session ended. Sometimes session will end automatically, session will expire automatically when the user is not sending any request after particular period of time. For suppose by default it is 30 minutes. Up to 30 minutes, if the user is not sending any request, then that particular user related details which are maintained in the server as a session will be removed. Okay, then again the user has to authenticate himself so that user can again access the website. Okay, sometimes some websites where we need much security, they will expire the session within 10 minutes, otherwise within 5 minutes or within 2 minutes. IRCTC will do that point. Okay, now Session management can be done by using different concepts like cookies. We can use cookie. There's nothing but you can create a cookie in a client system. Based, by reading the cookie, we can obtain the details about the user, and based upon that, we can respond to the user. Similarly, a hidden form field. Otherwise, URL rewriting. Okay, and the standard one is HTTP session, because in Java X.Servlet package, Java X.Servlet.HTTP package, they provided a class with the name HTTP session. By using this session, HTTP session class, we can manage the session. Okay, so when you look at one small diagram for this, so there are two clients. Two clients are accessing the same servlet. Okay, one with the ID 123, another one with ID 134, and for both requests, for both users, it will web container. Otherwise, the server will create two different sessions. A session is maintained for one user. Okay, session per user. Okay. So client will request. Okay, for suppose if it is a new request, then a new HTTP session will be created. Okay, for every HTTP session there will be an ID, session ID. What is that? Session ID. Automatically it will be created. And you can maintain some attributes within the session. For suppose Alex. Okay, attribute means there will be name for the attribute as well as value for the attribute. So one name will be there, and the attribute is value will be attribute value will be Alex. Okay, you can set the attribute. Okay, and so we will respond by using the ID. We will send the response. The web container will send the response using the ID. Okay, so based upon the session ID, the responses will be sent. Okay, based upon the session only, most of the websites will perform the operation. For suppose Gmail, if you take, okay, if I open Gmail, my mails will come. If you open Gmail, your mails will come. How? Because they identified you as, for suppose your name is Harish. Okay, you identify Gmail identified you as Harish, and Gmail identified me as Michael. Okay, so those details they keep in session object. They maintain in the session. Whenever a request comes, from that request, they will see the session. Based upon the session, they will identify who this user is, and based on that, response will be sent. Okay, of course, here HTTP session is not a class; it is an interface. Means what? Yeah, it has methods, but those methods have does not have a body. So those will be provided by somehow. Okay, and we will see here we cannot create a HTTP session object just like that. Okay, so you have to use request object and call get session, so that an session object will be created. So web container will take this job. Okay, it will create the session object and it will give the session object to you, and you can refer that one by using the object reference of HTTP session, and then onwards you can access it. Okay, so true means it will return a new session. Okay, if you are not passing anything, then if the session already exists, it returns the existing session object. Otherwise, it will create a new session. Okay, so if you want to get only the previous session, then write false directly. Okay, if you want to end the session or destroy the session, you have to call invalidate method in the session object. Okay, and there are so many methods in session object. The creation time, when the session is created. I said there will be session ID. If you want to get the ID, you can use get ID, and you can get when the user sent the last request, last access time, and we can get how many minutes, how much time that particular user is inactive. Means what? No request from how many minutes or how much of time. For suppose by default it is 30 minutes. If you want to invalidate before that, Okay, you can set the max inactive interval. For suppose IRCTC uses 2 minutes. So set max inactive interval to 2 minutes. Of course, this will take in seconds. You have to convert that one into seconds and write that count. Okay. Sometimes user clicks on logout. Okay, logout in the sense now the session has to be expired. You have to remove the session. So at the time you can call invalidate. Explicitly, if you want to end the session, invalidate. If the session has to be invalidated automatically, then you have to set max inactive interval. By default, max inactive interval will be 30 minutes. Okay, so let us go through one small example. This form is as similar to the previous example. There will be two text boxes. One is user, another one is password, and the submit button. When the user clicks on submit button, the request will go to validate servlet, and the method is post. And this is web.xml. One for validate servlet, another one for welcome. So there are two servlets. So there will be four tags, two servlet tags and two servlet mapping tags, and there is one welcome file list. That's nothing but welcome tag. Welcome file, one welcome file, index.html. So when the user requests website, the first page will be index.html, or their username and password will be given. Now within the Servlet Validate, what we are doing is we are getting the data what the user has given in the user as well as password. Those will be stored in name and pass, similar to the previous program. The difference comes here. If the password is equals to 1234, then I consider that one it is a correct password. Simply consider that one as a correct password. Okay, and then we are getting the request from the we are getting the session from the request. Session object is obtained. Okay, by using the session object, we are setting an attribute for that particular session. Okay, so what is that attribute? Attribute name is user. For every session, if user A authenticates himself, okay, there will be attribute for user A, and user B authenticate himself, but there will be attribute for user B. Okay, and for user A and B, attribute will be user, attribute name will be user only, but the value will be different. That is nothing but what is name? Name is a string. What it gets the value what the user gives in the first text box. That's nothing but one user will give name as A, another user will give name as B. So for user A, in his or her session, there will be an attribute with the name user and the value is A. For user B, there will be an attribute with the user and value is B. Okay, like that we set the attribute. Okay, so that attribute will be set with the different values for different users. Okay, different values for different users. Okay, same code will be executed, and then we are redirecting the user to one more page. Welcome means what? He will come to index.html, username and password user A 1234. Click on submit. Validate. In validate, session will be created, and session attribute will be created. User and the name what the user has given in the text box. Then it will go to the other servlet welcome, and in welcome what happens is again we are getting the session. Remaining stuff I have explained already in this lecture itself. Okay, now we will get the session object again, the servlet, the new servlet, and now here we are getting the attribute. In the previous page we set the attribute, now we get the attribute, and the attribute name is user. The value will be obtained over here. That will be in the form of an object. That object will be converted into string, and it is stored inside one variable name user of type string. And afterwards we are printing like this, hello user. Means what? It will not print hello user. It will print like this, hello A for the user A. It will print hello B for the user B. Just like in Gmail, when you open Gmail, at the top of the Gmail, it will show your email ID. If somebody else, your friend opens Gmail, it will show their email ID. Okay, how? Because it is identifying you both differently, and two different sessions are created, and the same website will be executed for both of you, but it will react differently based upon the type of the user, based upon the type of the user. Of course, you can use cookies also for session management. Okay, what is a cookie? Cookie is a text file created within the client system by the server. Okay, whenever client requests for the first time, you can create a cookie. If the user requests the same website some other time, then along with that request, cookie will be sent. And using the response, you can change the cookie, existing cookie. Otherwise, you can add the new cookie. Okay, so using request, you can get the cookies. Using response, you can add the cookie. And cookie is one class in the Servlet API. Of course, it is in javax.servlet or HTTP Servlet package. Okay, now how to create a cookie? By creating an object for the class cookie. And in that, we have to pass the name as well as value. So name and value pair. Okay, name is username. Value is, for suppose, a value within one variable. Okay, if you see the previous example, name is the value what the user has given in the in the first text box. Okay, so by using that same name, you created a cookie over here. Okay, and then you can set the time limit also. That age, how much time it has to reside on the client system. Okay, in terms of seconds, 30 minutes. Okay, then by using response, we can add that cookie. What is that CK? CK is cookie object. CK is cookie object. So we are passing cookie object by using add cookie. We are passing cookie object to add cookie, and add cookie is by using response. So we will send response by adding a cookie. So a cookie will be added in the client system. And by using request, we can get the cookies. It is cookies, means what? An array. Okay, not only one cookie, multiple cookies can be created. Even though if there is only one cookie within the client system, okay, we have to use get cookies only. It will return an array with only one cookie. From that, you have to read. It will be in the form of array, that's it. Okay, our example. So user gives username and password, clicks on submit, it will go to my servlet, and if the password is 1234, it will go to first page. Okay, the same stuff, validate. Now in the place of welcome, previous example, welcome, this is first. Okay, and of course welcome file is index. Okay, here we are getting the username and password. Okay, we are now here what we are doing is we are creating the cookie. Previously we created the session object. We got the session object. Here we created the cookie, add the cookie in the response. After that, we are redirecting the page to one more page first. What is first? Simply it will get the cookies. And it is an array. CKS is an array, cookie array. So CKS of 0, the first element, dot get value, that's nothing but the value what the user has given in the text box will be obtained over here. Okay, same thing, it will print welcome A for user A, it will print welcome B for the user B. Okay, and you can use URL rewriting also, and I think this is not that much important, or it will be easy. You can go through these things. For now, you can skip these two because our concept is HTTP session as well as cookies. This is not this one. Which one? URL rewriting as well as hidden field, hidden tag. Those two are not widely used nowadays, and it is not in our syllabus also. Our concept is mainly on HTTP session as well as cookie, because those two are from Servlet package. Okay, and then the last concept, there's nothing but Servlet config as well as Servlet context. Okay, those are the two objects. Okay, within those two objects we place some values. We place few values. Okay, so let us see what are those values. Okay, first one, Servlet config interface. So web container initializes a servlet. When web container initializes a servlet, it creates servlet config for the servlet. Servlet config object is used to pass information to servlet during initialization by getting configuration information from web.xml. That's nothing but within the web.xml, we will maintain some information. That information will be taken and it will be passed to the servlet during its initialization. Okay, when you look at servlet, there will be 3 states for the servlet: init state and service state, as well as destroy state. Service state in the sense, for every request, service will be executed. Init will be executed only once. Destroy will be executed only once in its lifetime. Okay. So during initialization of the servlet, you can get some information and use that information for the initialization purpose of the servlet. And that information generally we store in web.xml. Okay. For suppose database connection. Okay, for a database connection, there will be a connection string. Okay, that connection string you can place within web.xml, and that database connection string can be obtained during the initialization of the servlet from the web.xml and use that one wherever you want. Okay, so like that, so many other uses are also there. So the point here is some information from web.xml to the servlet during its initialization can be done with the help of servlet config. Okay, so here information means again in terms of parameters. Okay, so you can give the name for the parameter and value for the parameter. Okay, and in the init method of the servlet, you can get the servlet config object. From the servlet config object, you can get the init parameters by passing the name of the parameter. If you don't know the name of the parameter, then you can get the list of parameter names by using get init parameter names. Okay, here again you can get the object of servlet context also. That what is servlet context we will discuss later after this. And if you want, you can get the servlet name by using servlet config. Now within web.xml, what we have to write? We know we supposed to write servlet tag. We supposed to write a servlet mapping tag. Okay, within the servlet tag, okay, along with servlet name and class, we are supposed to write one more tag. That's nothing but init-param tag. Okay, within that param name and param value, you can give any name and any value. Okay, and so within the init method of the servlet, we call get servlet config. It will return the config object. By using that config object, we can get the init parameter by passing the name of the parameter. Now in this example, we are printing it in the servlet. That is one example. That's it. However you want, you can use it. So the first one is web.xml. In web.xml, within the servlet tag, okay, along with servlet name and servlet class, there is servlet init param. Okay, and servlet mapping is as it is, along with welcome file. Okay, so here in doGet, we are getting this. Generally, not in doGet. We have to use this one in init method. Okay, in this example, I got this one from our website. Okay, over there they gave this example for example purpose. Okay, they gave they called it get servlet config in the doGet. Not only in doGet, generally we use that one in init method. Then servlet context. Okay, here also same thing, name and value. Okay, name and values. Some information will be maintained. Within the deployment descriptor web.xml. Okay, but here the point is, this will be available for all the servlets throughout the web application. The previous one, servlet config, is bound to one servlet. This one, servlet context, is configuration information maintained in web.xml, and it will be available for any servlet, otherwise any JSP page within your website. That's what the concept. There is a difference between servlet config as well as servlet context. Okay, here again, get attribute, get init parameters, name, set attribute, remove attribute, all the same concepts. Okay, but here, where do we write that information in web app? But we will not write in servlet tag. There is a separate tag called context param. Okay, context param, within that param name and param value. Okay, so servlet context information will be from context param tag of web.xml. That is nothing but deployment descriptor. And same approach. What is that? Get servlet context. Okay, it will give the servlet context object. Otherwise, from the config object also you can get the servlet context object. Okay. So what is the use? To get the communication between servlets, and it is available to all servlets and JSP. So if you want to pass a single information to all servlets and all pages, JSP pages, you can use servlet context. Okay. So some differences. Okay. So example, context param, name, value. Okay, along with servlet and servlet mapping in web.xml. And then within the do get, we are getting the context. And this context can be obtained wherever you want. Wherever you want, you can get those details. For suppose driver name. Okay, get init parameter. Of course, we have attributes. Okay, those attributes have different scope. Means what? You can maintain an attribute only for that particular request. You can maintain an attribute only for particular session. Similarly, you can maintain attribute only for you can maintain attribute throughout the application. So that attribute will be used similar throughout the web application, website, in every servlet, in every JSP page. Session in every page, in every JSP page, or in any servlet throughout the web page, that particular attribute can be used, but it is related to one user because a session is maintained per user. Okay, and request is nothing but only one request, for only one request. Okay, so those details. For suppose if you take application scope, servlet context will be used because servlet context is the information which is maintained throughout the website. Okay, so we get the object servlet context, we will set the attribute, we will get the attribute, we can remove the attribute. Okay, there's nothing but this attribute can set in one page by one user, and it will be retrieved in another page by another user. Okay, that is what this concept. Okay, for request only, that's request, for that request only we can use. Similarly, we can set the attribute also. Okay, so with this I'm completing my lecture on servlet.